Good morning. I'll call the meeting of the Audit Committee to order. We need to review the Audit Committee charter. Mike, is that something you could guide us through?
As this is the first meeting of the Audit Committee since we divided the Audit and Finance Committee into two, the main purpose of the committee is to assure that the board is fulfilling all its internal and external audit process and financial reporting processes, as well as provide an avenue of communication between management, the independent auditors, and the staff and the board of directors. The function basically is to authorize, recommend to the board the author entering into the annual engagement letter with the firm that's been selected to do the audit. That also infers that if at some point you want to go out to bid for audit services, that this committee would oversee that process. The committee will meet with the auditors. There probably will be an audit planning meeting and then an audit report before the full audit is submitted to the board. In the course of that activity, you'll do some of the things that are listed on page 2. You'll seek information, you'll meet with staff, you'll retain an auditor, you'll report annually to the board on how you discharged your duties, and you'll complete the same evaluation that other committees provide so that we can report to the ABO. The committee shall consist of the chair of the board of directors, the vice chair, the secretary, the chair of the loan committee, the chair of the governance committee. The chairperson of the audit committee shall be appointed by the chair of the board of directors and ratified by the board of directors. So, Mr. Chairman, if you would like to substitute one of your members at some point in the future, that would be the process. Obviously, you can't have any employees on the audit committee, but we also have restrictions on having board members who are employees. The meetings will meet a minimum of twice a year, and you're obviously because of your role as a board member already complying with all of the state and statutory requirements of being an independent board member. The chairperson will preside and will ensure that we comply with the public officers law and the open meetings law, and the audit committee, as we discussed, will recommend and oversee the independent auditors. Will provide the procedures for engagement, which is what we're looking to review and approve and recommend to the full board today. Review and approve the audited statements and management letter when it is presented by the auditors. Review any significant accounting and reporting issues that they might bring up. And you'll recall in the past, when the Finance and Audit Committee was one, they did bring up an issue that we had put in a temporary account, a grant, because we weren't exactly sure how to book it. And instead of figuring that out in April, we waited till they came in December, and they said we should have been more timely in creating the appropriate entry. We argued with them, but you got to let them win once in a while. The internal auditors, we have not, we have a bookkeeper, and in my role as CEO, overseeing the internal finances of the organization. And as you know, we did retain RBT for the purposes of assisting us on a quarterly basis. And we will review whether we continue that process, and if we continue it with RBT at the next Finance Committee meeting. Again, you'll review the management letter that the auditors provide, and if there's anything in there that requires action, you'll oversee that I implement those as suggested. You'll ensure confidential mechanism for anyone to report fraudulent activities, allegations of corruption, fraud, criminal activity, conflicts of interest by directors, officers, or employees, or any person having business dealings with the corporation. We do have an ethics officer established where those, I think the bylaws provide that you report those types of issues to the ethics officer or to the board chair if you're not comfortable speaking with the ethics officer. We do have, it says that you're going to be developing procedures for complaints, but we really want to may take a look at that because we have set that up where that goes to the governance committee. I would suspect that what we would do is amend that to read that to the extent anyone came to you with any of these types of complaints, that you would refer them to the governance committee. Fortunately, the Inspector General has never knocked on our door, so, but if they do, we would certainly alert all of you. You'll present annually a written report, as does all committees. You'll obtain any information and training that the committee members desire or are required to participate in, including the ABO training that all board members participate in. And you'll review and recommend this charter annually, and as the board and all committees do a self-evaluation. So it's pretty standard, with the exception that your responsibility is to ensure that we select, engage, and complete an audit every year that we can file with the Authority Budget Office.
Anyone have questions about the substance of the committee charter?
May just touch on the relationship if you are on both of the committees, or is there anything that you have an extra duty when you're at the finance committee? Just,
No, I think it's good to have someone cross membership because, there may be a question that comes up at audit where someone from the finance committee can weigh in and vice versa.
Okay.
But, I think the good governance policy is that the chair should not be a member of the other committee.
Okay.
And our bylaws have the treasurer as the chair of the finance committee.
If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to recommend to the board that they approve the audit committee charter.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next is the engagement letter with the auditing firm.
We have been using UHY since it acquired Patterson Koski. And we have been, we use Patterson Koski for as long as I can remember, at least since I've been here, and several years before that. This letter outlines the engagement as to what they will do, as to what management's responsibilities are in terms of providing them with detailed data to be able to conduct the audit. And we do have this issue that because we're receiving a certain percentage of federal monies, which are counted as the SBA grant, the SBA loan funds that they advance to us, and money that we receive from the New York State Office of Community Renewal, which is administering federal funds. It puts us over the top where we now have to do what's called a single audit, which adds to the cost because there are certain requirements under federal law and regulations that the auditor has to add to their tasks in reviewing what we do.
That accounts for the 10% increase in the fee.
Well, the fee went up, modestly, but it had gone up from like almost $7,000 to $9,000 last time around. I did include a brief summary that I can pull up here. They estimated their fee will be 32.5 based on 200 hours. That, as Jim points out, is a 10% increase from 29.6 last year. They only, and they did a 10% increase on the proposal for the tax return. The tax return is a separate fee. You know, if you take 32,000 and divide it by the 200 hours, it's $160 an hour. We have had this discussion in the past when Rick Bianchi was on the board, and we have it at the IDA with Bob Glucio. And they feel that the fees here are reasonable based on industry standards. Obviously, it's creep. You know, if we went back and looked at a 5-year increase, which I can do for you, you know, making the adjustment for the added work required by the federal single audit, you could get a sense of, you know, how these fees go up. I do think that as these accounting firms get rolled up and they get bigger, the cost of dealing with them has skyrocketed, because now if there's someone questioned, they have an expert in the office to go to another person and explain the whole thing to him or her, and then they bill you for, you're getting layered billing. At the same time, there's probably no one that could run a 5 or 6 person accounting firm in a small community and keep you out of all the trouble that you might find yourself in. So, you know, it's good corporate practice to have them change the lead auditor. Matt Vanderbeck did it for 5 or 6 years. Now Nicole Overbaugh is doing it. I would think that by next year, you would, if you were going to stay with them, that you would have a new partner or new manager be the lead. The theory there is that you know, you're preserving some level of independence, and you know, just like bank employees who touch cash have to be out of the bank for 2 weeks every year at the same time, or same consecutive, so that if something's going wrong, it pops up. If you have a new manager going through it. On the flip side, having a new audit firm gives you people with a different perspective and a different look, and it may be where you find that you're saving some money. Obviously, at this point in time, if we were to do that, we would want to start that almost in April to get an RFP out. So
when is the last time it was bid out?
Not in my tenure.
So is it possible to do it just to have competitive bids?
Yeah,
To judge it against?
but I think we'd have to do it for 2025, starting in April, to go out and do an RFP.
Like, asking for the RFP doesn't mean we're not gonna stay with
Right,
the same
yeah.
firm. So
Although
it might be a way of keeping the fees increasing every year. And
well,
that's-
certainly, see, somebody comes back in 22, you've got to sit up and
Yeah.
take notice.
But it gives us the ability to kind of like stop it from.
So why don't we plan to do that for we'll start it in April, put out an RFP so that you're not, and we will present to the committee several firms. We'll check with some of our, just like I did with the salaries of other organizations like ours. We'll find out who does their work. You know, as an example, at the bank, we have Wolf as the external auditor, the independent auditor. But again, it's so complex, you can't have a staff person as an internal auditor. So we had Bonadio out of Albany for 10 years. And we did go out to bid, and the pricing was, you know, within 10%. But we picked UHY, who was higher, actually 10% higher, because you wanted to get a fresh look at even down to how the reports are presented. You know, each have their own unique approach. So why don't we take a look at that?
auditor on this engagement letter. Is there a motion to recommend approval?
I would guess based on, the last 3 years of labor cost increases across every industry, that this isn't inconsistent with, the hourly rate that you would see elsewhere. But it will be good to get a comparable price.
Can you repeat what you're wanting a motion for?
Shall we recommend board approval of the engagement letter with UHY for this stipend?
Make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion
We could
carried.
let the minutes reflect that was both the audit, engagement letter for the audit and the tax return.
And the tax, yes. Thank you very much.
What we have done at the bank is we do a 3-year contract where they have to give a price for all 3 years, so it's the first year, somewhat a lost leader, because they have to come in and learn your business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though this is the first meeting of the audit committee, there was a audit/finance committee meeting back in April, and we need to,
Jim, you don't need to approve them.
we don't,
The finance committee approved those. I just wanted those for
Oh.
you for reference.
good, thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it. Any other business to come before the audit committee? And is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much.